The idea of creating not just a compact cross-country vehicle excited the minds and aspirations of many for a long time. The first to implement this type of car in mass production, and even in an incredible number of modifications, was Mitsubishi Motors. Front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, off-road options, with an opening top, with a variety of engines, including a Hurricane turbo engine, a whole galaxy of modifications. Another outstanding feature is the 4-seat interior layout with limousine space for rear passengers. It's all about him, about the Mitsubishi RVR/RVR Sports Gear family of compact vans. The RVR family was opened by a 1.8-liter gasoline 16-valve engine with a capacity of 120 horsepower, which already suited many consumers. The choice was offered a 5-speed mechanics or a 4-band hydro-mechanical automatic with the traditional control algorithm for that time, a switchable overdrive and the ability to lock first and second gears. Even with this base engine, there were 4 WD versions. The eminent branded unit, gasoline 4G63, with a volume of 2.0 liters in the atmospheric version developed a power of 140 horsepower, which was very good for the early 90s. In 1992, his charged, but still atmospheric version of 160 horses appeared. By tradition, both engines also implied different transmission options, mechanics and automatic. In the same year, a 2.0-liter turbo diesel with a capacity of 88 horses was also offered as a workhorse, which was equipped only with 4 WD versions. Transmission. All-wheel drive was not temporarily connected, but classic full-time 4 WD, that is, permanent, through a symmetrical center differential, however, like conventional RVR 4WD. With this, you can roll through mud, sand, or snow as much as you like and at any pace. It won't overheat, won't turn off, won't fall apart. True, a not very effective viscous coupling was in charge of blocking the center, and a hard mechanical lock mode was not provided. However, some versions were even equipped with a rear self-locking differential. Suspension. The entry-exit angles were large enough, and the clearance was very decent. The RVR Sports Gear used an independent suspension scheme at the rear, unlike, for example, the Toyota Sprinter Carib 4WD with an axle. In particular, this is why the ground clearance was an impressive 210 mm. Today not every cross, even from the large ones, can flaunt such a characteristic. Thus, by the mid-90s, truly dynamic, hot crossovers appeared in the Mitsubishi model line. At the same time, the company produced the second-generation Lancer Evolution, where the engine power was still higher, 260 to 270 horsepower. It cannot be said that the RVR, with the makings of an Evo, was in high demand, but the very fact that such versions could be purchased spoke volumes. The ride quality of the Mitsubishi RVR, and especially the RVR Sports Gear, as a rule deservedly evoked positive ratings, and in the turbo versions, they were completely delighted. The car behaved with dignity on the track, allowed to drive at high speed, provided safe maneuvers, was not afraid of mountainous and other difficult roads. Of course, its capabilities cannot be compared with the same Niva off-road, but among the owners of RVR Sports Gear there were many people who moved to this car from a domestic SUV and were quite satisfied with RVR as an option with a higher level of comfort. In addition, the car made it possible to improve cross-country ability with available folk remedies. A little lift nut, put slightly larger wheels and additional protection. An excellent concept, embodied in a wide variety of readings with a lot of exclusive and original solutions for its time, plus Japanese quality at a reasonable price, taking into account the specifics of the second-hand car market. Is it a real treasure in the consumer segment? Everything would be fine, but RVR has its own curse of the Baskerville family, which manifests itself during the long-term operation of many cross vans. The main power and transmission units turned out to be more demanding than expected from the Japanese brand. One of the reasons for the people's disappointment was the engines. Yes, the characteristics of the 2.0-liter engines were at their best, and the distributed fuel injection and cast-iron cylinder block inspired confidence, but there were nuances. In particular, a system for suppressing the so-called second-order inertia forces was introduced into the 2.0-liter unit. The fact that it was possible to completely do without this system was later demonstrated by our craftsmen when they jammed the shafts, that is, they completely took them out of work with removal from the engine. Thus, they tried to reduce the operating costs associated with the need to strictly monitor the condition of the engine and incur increased costs for maintenance and repair. If the balance shaft soured from lack of lubrication or its drive belt simply broke, this provoked a break in the timing belt, which itself worked with an additional load. Well, the break, of course, caused a frontal accident between the valves and pistons with very costly consequences. Also on the motors of this series, hydraulic valve clearance compensators were used, which were by no means long-lived, especially in case of problems in the lubrication system. On top of that, even typical deviations in engine operation, unstable idle speed, dips under load, increased fuel consumption, etc., caused certain difficulties for the garage service. Due to the design features, the identification and elimination of such malfunctions turned out to be a more time-consuming and costly process than, for example, the folk Toyota models of the same period. We failed to earn the title of indestructible and the heavy fuel engine, for D68. It would seem that a typical representative of the old diesel school is a swirl chamber 8-valve unit with average characteristics, which, coupled with a working volume of 2.0 liters, made it possible to count on reliability and a high resource. There were no complaints about the cast iron cylinder block, but the aluminum head did not like high long-term loads and temperature shocks. Again, an overcomplicated design with additional shafts and drive belts, as they would say now, is not good. Outcome: a transversely mounted engine and an all-wheel drive transmission with a center differential. The Japanese automakers of the 90s had such a scheme in service massively and with a reliable result, like our Kalashnikov assault rifle. But in this connection, the Mitsubishi RVR often misfired the hydromechanical automatic machine, which had to be supplied with a proprietary working fluid. Do this more often and preferably with a filter change. Repair or complete replacement was quite expensive. For RVR sports gear, for example, articulated drives were also more expensive than usual. Knocks from the rear suspension could be associated not only with dead shock absorbers, but also with a broken gear bracket mount. As you can see, there were shortcomings, and, obviously, it was they who, in their own way, had a negative impact on the adaptability of cars of this series to our living realities. One way or another, gradually Mitsubishi RVR began to lose popularity. The influx of fresh forces from Japan, although traditionally attracted everyone's attention, continued to alert with new technical plots of the original genre. This was often the case with Mitsubishi products.